approach to their way of working with sustainability, and obviously the DGSI is, again, it's business-led. It's entirely for business. So, as I say, I think there's so much movement that's really led this field recently in the business context. And there again, the New Zealand government, they actually put the emphasis on measuring and reporting, which again is something which is totally necessary. But you know, if you came up with an amalgam, I think, of all of these definitions, we've kind of got there. But it's very interesting to see, I think, you know, different organisations focused on different things. So I think the challenge for higher education in our courses and the way we actually operate within a sustainable framework really encompasses, you know, all of the above, as it were. But I think it's interesting to see that there are these sort of discrepancies. And again, just really focusing in on perhaps the business side of things, it's quite fascinating in a way, and I think I'm even more fascinated because I guess I was immersed in this, you know, when I was back in the UK, and when I came over to the US, really nothing was going on. 11 years ago, you know, the word sustainability, not only did people not know what it was, they didn't want to know what it was. This is something which, you know, okay, the funny old Europeans do, and this doesn't concern us, sort of thing. But for me, I found this a really interesting few years, particularly the last 2 to 3 years, where things have really taken off here. And my contention always in this is it might take a little bit of time, sometimes certainly with regard to climate change and the other sustainability areas of debate that maybe the US hasn't been out there perhaps as quickly as Europe and to some extent even Asia. But when the US gets the message, boy, you certainly go for it. And that's what I find also, the dynamism in where we are at the moment with regard to sustainability, because, you know, America's got the message, I think. You know, certain pockets perhaps, you know, have got a little way to go, but, you know, things are moving just so rapidly. So we're getting coverage in, okay, the popular news magazines, we're getting it in, again, business magazines, this is just one. I think Al Gore, despite some people having, well, let's say sympathies about it, I mean, he's a great communicator. He's brought the whole climate change debate, for better or for worse, actually, into the public scene. We're getting now, and that's just an example, companies are producing sustainability reports. Over half of the of the Fortune 500 companies are producing sustainability reports, so I think that tells us a lot. And again, this is my sort of 30,000-foot view. We've got a lot of areas which are really entering the debate at the moment. Obviously, climate change seems to be getting the airtime. Not to coin a pun, but I mean, you know, it is an urgent issue. So I mean, I don't think it's if you like misguided that there's a lot of attention at the moment on climate change. But there again, I think that's kind of the trigger, which seems to be actually getting at least some action, as well as some media attention. And there again, if you look at it from other organisations' points of view, what are they doing? They're doing that, you know, they're understanding what their carbon footprint looks like. They're setting the goals to see, you know, how they can actually reduce that carbon footprint. So there's a lot which is generated around this whole area of climate change. In fact, to some extent, that's the sort of the pivot around some of the other areas of sustainability that seem to be taking root at the moment. This whole sort of social equity side, I mean, the 3 pillars of sustainability being environment, social and economic well-being. I think there's still quite a long way to go. I think there's still a little bit of an avoidance of the social issues in the US still. I think it's always greeted with a little bit of suspicion what the Europeans are doing in the whole sort of social side. And in fact, I mean, just to pick up on one example, about 2005, there was a green paper that came out of the European Union on CSR, corporate social responsibility. And I don't know if people are familiar with the way Europe works, but I mean, once you've got a green paper, it's like it's not quite as strong as a white paper, it's more of a discussion paper or a think piece. But generally from those green papers, then each country, each member state then begins to think about how they're going to enshrine some of the concepts in that in terms of either regulation or legislation. So the green paper on corporate social responsibility, I think, was actually quite a milestone in terms of where Europe is going. This whole area of green jobs, I mean, that is, I'm not going to go through all of these, but green jobs, there's a terrific debate at the moment, green jobs. You know, Obama is pushing the green job thing like crazy. Well, that's good. You know, if there's a real sort of economic opportunity there, which I firmly believe there is, I think that hopefully will take us also at least contribute to us getting out of this sort of financial doldrum that we seem to be in at the moment. But there again, green jobs, it needs defining, and I'm going to say a little bit about that towards the end of this. Again, I'm not going to go through all this, but I think that myself, having been, I guess, in this field for so long, I've sort of lived with some of these initiatives. Where does higher education and where does you know, the university fit into some of these global initiatives? Are they relevant? Are they something we should be aware of? Are they? Can we actually get anything meaningful out of them? I mean, sometimes these things are all very well, you know, at a higher governmental level, but what do they mean on the ground, and what do they mean practically? So they're worth reading. They're worth going through. As I said, the US is now burgeoning almost with all sorts of initiatives. I mean, it's a pity Mr. Clinton didn't do very much when he was in power, but anyway, he's obviously got the message now. The other unbelievable, almost unbelievable initiative going on, which I'm full of admiration for, and that's the US Mayor's initiative on climate change. There's something the order of about 900 cities now who have actually signed up to this sort of mayor's group on climate change. And I think that, you know, we're seeing so much that the momentum now, I think, is quite astounding almost. And I would actually also just point out, in that context, a couple of things which some people might actually be surprised to see. There's a Greening the Capital initiative. I mean, that actually was under the previous administration. And this, I think, is one of the key pieces of, well, it's not legislation, it's a White House executive order. And it's Executive Order 13423, that means in strengthening federal environmental, energy and transportation management. Now, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but when I read that, that's like sustainability by any other name. In fact, I was absolutely astounded, really, some of the content in this White House EO. So I think that there has been quite a lot of things going on, bubbling under the surface, even at federal level and even under the previous administration, which actually is good, because that then gives us